Okay, I have the Ekahau application up and running and properly licensed, and now I'm ready to load the map into it and scale the map and begin a site survey. So this is the default setup. This is the Untitled Ekahau Site Survey, so I'm going to add a map. And I'm going to slide this window over a little bit, zoom out, and set the scale of the floor plan. I used Google Earth to measure out this wall as being 273 feet, 273 feet. So now I have it scaled. I can go into surveys and minimize this window, zoom in, and I'm going to begin the site survey. I'm going to unplug from power and go down here to the end of the hall and begin the survey. I was reading the installation guide, user guide, imagine that, and learned a couple of things. Say, for example, that I needed to configure my Wi-Fi device by going into the network adapter settings and activate which bands are scanned. So let me make sure that I've actually done that. Let me set my laptop down because we need to tell it which bands to scan. So under devices, this is the one that I'm using for scanning configuration, and it's selected for the band for the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz band. I'm going to leave it like that because that tells me that it's scanning for the 5 gigahertz and the 2.4 gigahertz, or I can choose custom channels for the Americas, but I'm going to leave it on the 5 and 2.4 bands. I don't know if I need to. I can't select those anymore, so I guess I don't need to select the available channels. I think they're selected by default. You can adjust the wait time on channel from anything from 15 to 200, and the installation guide says the wait time per channel should be set to a higher wait time if broadcasting is disabled on the wireless infrastructure. There's an SSID that's actually being broadcast on this network, so I will leave that as it stands at 30, which is fine. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and I'm going to click the site survey link, and I'm going to click and start to mouse forward and then into the patient room, over into the corner, into the far corner, and then back again, and then up and around the bed, and back across the hallway. The first time I tried to use the application, I had the wait time set to 105, I think it was, by default. So when I've changed it down to 30, and I've got an SSID broadcast, it seems to make the survey go quicker, because before I was waiting an awfully long time for the little color blob to show up around my survey arrow. It seems to be working a lot quicker now, which is good. I thought I was doing something wrong because it was taking a while for the color to display, even though I was walking at a fairly slow pace around the patient rooms. So I'm just going to do a few rooms here in this wing where the rooms are empty and there's no nursing staff, but the rooms are unlocked, which is good because it's a perfect test bed for trying out this new, to me anyways, site survey application. I've been using nothing but AirMagnet to do site surveys since probably 2006, so it's interesting to finally get my hands on a real working copy of the Ekahau tool and see how it functions as compared to the AirMagnet tool. My only experience with the Ekahau tool was back in 2005, where the company that I was working for had paid a consulting company to come in and do a site survey of the hospital where I was working. And I have to say I wasn't impressed with the coverage maps and how the color was displayed to indicate what the signal strength was in a given area. And it would be interesting to compare and contrast those images from back then with what the application looks like now. And I'll do that if I can find the survey data. I'm pretty sure I kept it. To the corner, back, over here, and then back. Just a couple more rooms so I get a good collection of survey data, so I'm not just walking one little small area. I want to see what it looks like over a larger area, like it would if I was using this to do the survey at this hospital. And then I can compare it with the AirMagnet data that I collected using my same survey methods and see what the difference is. Go in here. This floor plan is not correct. There's actually 2 doorways. They divided a patient room into a couple of offices. So it looks basically like this. Instead, over to the window. Back out again. Back to the corner. Back out to the hallway. Another couple patient rooms empty. And while I'm doing the survey, I'm really trying to pay more attention to having straight survey lines and wait for the color to populate the area that I've just walked, rather than me trying to extrapolate what's going on with my coverage signal strength based upon the colors. I'll analyze that later. Okay. Now the user guide also says I can stop the survey at any time if I right-click, which I can. Previously I've been mousing up to hit the arrow button to change from site survey mode. So it also recommends collecting small samples and then combining them at a later point, much like you do in the AirMagnet application, so that you can make sure that if something does go wrong with your application or your laptop or something happens, that you're able to recover your last data set because you save it in smaller increments rather than do the whole floor and then lose a whole floor's worth of walking and data collection. So at this point, you can see that the application has auto-placed a couple of access points based upon their signal strength. I'm betting that these access points are probably on the floor below, is my guess. Because I don't visually see 3 access points, and there's only one that has a pretty good hotspot around it, which is this A44G1, which is the channel that it's set to. Obviously, A is the channel 44, and G is channel 1. So if I change the show from signal strength to data rate, we can get a good visual that basically the whole floor is covered with a data rate of anywhere between 48 to 54 megs. For the interference and noise, the noise floor is pretty low, neg 90. It's pretty good. Network health. Now, I find it interesting that it says fail around a great portion of the area, and I'm not sure quite why that is. Let me see why that might be. Basic connectivity. Because it didn't show a bad signal strength. It didn't show a bad signal-to-noise ratio. Ping round trip time and packet loss. So I'm not really sure why it says fail when none of the other metrics seem to be especially bad. Signal to noise ratio 40-45. I mean, that's good. While I'm doing the survey, it's actually using my laptop adapter to do ping times. As you can see by this display up here, it will show you the ping round trip time from the host and show you what your loss is, your sequence, your sending time, how many milliseconds round trip time it takes to actually get that information back. Maximum throughput display looks like 22 to 24 megs, which isn't necessarily bad, so I don't know really why that should be indicated as red, because it's not really bad. Maximum throughput, capacity health. We can add, we can pretend there's a bunch of different laptops, phones, tablets, what have you, and do some capacity planning. We can also go into the options of this and show smooth or detailed. We can do a visualization of either 7 feet. We can change the propagation, assuming that the signal spans, 20 to 30 feet. And you can see the display changes accordingly. If we want to assume that the signal only spans 5 feet, you get much more granular outlines, contour lines being drawn. If we want to see a very accurate, and say the signal spreads, we'll say 25 feet in here. And we can do just the current floor prediction, one floor. I don't have any additional floors built in, so that's not going to really do much of anything. There was something else. Oh, if I adjust this, and I say I want the spacing to be 1, we can see the difference between the dB in levels of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dB or 10 dB. Then you can see it starts to be more like the data that I remember seeing from the survey that was done way back when, because it was pretty big, broad geometric representations of the signal like you're seeing here. As I make it less granular, I think the usability of the display gets less and less, because there's not really, it doesn't show a gradient drop off. It's just these big blocky areas that don't really, in my opinion, don't really show the full story of what's going on. So maybe it's the people that were doing the survey that I saw their data didn't have it tweaked properly. You can adjust the different color levels if you want. We can change it to what it, I'm used to seeing stuff like this with the AirMagnet survey, with blue being the hottest signal strength and red being the lowest. And I can change the spacing to be 1 or 3. We can say I want to see everything that's neg 65. So we get more of a cellular cutoff where we can see what our signal strength is at the 65 dB or 75 dB. And we can change our chart here in the same way that we change the slider on the AirMagnet application off to the right-hand side. So you can turn on Survey Inspector, and at any of these little orange points you can click on that location and double click it, and you will see the MAC address of the access point that was detected, the SSID, the security that was enabled, what type of access point it was, what channel it was on, what the signal to noise ratio was, and a bunch of usable information off to the right hand side. And you can actually walk through the survey and see each step of the survey where there's a little orange dot indicating that there was a recording taken, that you can analyze further to see what was going on. And you can see your continuous ping to your destination host. As you walk through the survey, it will show you what the corresponding data was as you were at that collection point. You can actually change the intervals, apparently. Oh, I see. So you're basically changing the granularity and changing your round trip time display because you're changing how often you want these to be shown, how what your x-axis is going to be, 30-second captures. So that's pretty interesting. If I move this over, we are able to see the other access points that were detected by the application, but it doesn't seem to be as straightforward as the AirMagnet application where you just list all the SSIDs and you say enable, disable, like I want to see this one, I don't want to see this one. Because I don't know where these access points actually are. So let me do select all and right click and say place automatically. But it doesn't really tell me about the SSIDs that were detected on the floor, so I'm not really sure still how to display the SSIDs that were detected on the floor if they're not infrastructure SSIDs, say if they were neighboring SSIDs that were affecting inside the building or that were being detected inside the building. So that's something I'm going to have to continue to look up. I will say that I do like the way the color gradient displays now and how you can tweak it in order to show the different contours and give it more of a granularity. I like that. That wasn't present in the last version, but of course that was, who knows how many software revisions ago that was, because I'm sure the Ekahau application has come a long way since 2005. The version that I'm running is 5.5.7. It's just recently installed and I have a 90-day license for it. I'll have to continue to interact with it a little more and see if I can get information out of it that's similar to what I'm used to getting out of AirMagnet. I'm sure I can. I just don't know how to do it. So if anybody has any helpful pointers on how to display the SSIDs on the map in the same way that I would in AirMagnet, that would be great if you could tell me what I'm doing wrong or how I need to do it, because I'm not sure how to get that displayed. So that's the nutshell version of the Ekahau Site Survey, and you can see my perspective on using it. I mean, this is the first time I've actually given it some use since I've had a fully functioning temporary license. So I hope this was useful for you. Maybe it will be useful for me because somebody out there will tell me what, how to get more out of the application than what I'm getting. So I thank you for watching. Thanks.